Hello guys and welcome to the channel. And in this video is for organizations who build and sell public facing software or digital products. And I have an hypothetical problem or situation that has occurred. You have received, you've been informed by one of your biggest clients that your product is not accessible for people with disability. The company has conducted an audit of all of their applications, all of their products and software that they purchase, and your software, your product, has been determined that it is not accessible for people with disabilities, and you're on the verge of losing that contract if you don't get these issues resolved by this deadline. They've given you a deadline. Some organizations' first reaction would be they want to scramble and hurry up and get it fixed. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, we've just received this feedback from our client that our software, our product has failed WCAG standards. We don't even know what WCAG standards are. Our developers have already stretched. They're working on like a new enhancement. They're building a new version of the product. And so we really don't know what to do other than you're scrambling and you really don't know what to do. You don't have a accessibility team. You don't have anyone that you can really reach out to for some direction and guidance on exactly what you need to do in order to get these issues resolved. So in this video, I'm just going to provide you guys with a few tips and things that you can do in the event if your organization have received this information from a client, or to possibly prevent this from occurring. And especially for those who are not really like familiar with what accessibility is and what WCAG is. So let me get started in a few things that you can do before you start trying to tackle the issue. And as I mentioned earlier, one of your thoughts, one of the things that you might be thinking about is, okay, what in the world is accessibility and what is WCAG? The first thing that I would advise you to do is to get educated on what accessibility is. Learn as much as you can about what digital accessibility is and how it impacts websites. What are these WCAG standards are? You could easily you can Google WCAG and find out about the latest guidelines. So that would be my first lesson. If you receive the notification that your product is not accessible, before you start trying to fix it, you first need to understand what WCAG is. And you can easily do this by just doing a Google search on WCAG, and that's WCAG, and learn about what these standards are. Secondly, I would suggest that you learn about what accessibility is and why it's important. Sometimes those of us, when we hear accessibility, we think about a physical place. You might think about making sure that say if you're at a restaurant or you're in a public building, uh, you might be thinking about making sure that the bathrooms, there's ramps, there's elevators and things like that for people with disabilities to gain access or use um, a physical product or go into a physical building. But for things that are online, for example, you have your you have your website, or you have a software that you sell to your customers, and say it's a government site, a local recreational facility for um, in your county, and users that are visually impaired need to go to your site, or they go to your site in order to find out um, what events are going on in the area that they want to attend. A person that is visually impaired, in order for them to gain access to that information and read that information, their vision is impaired, they use a screen reader. And what a screen reader does is an accessive tool that can be easily downloaded on your device. They use a screen reader in order to read the content on your website. If your product is not accessible, when that screen reader tries to read that information on your website, if it runs into any kind of challenges and it can't read that content for those of us that can see, that's a problem. Another thing, you take someone that's hearing impaired. Someone that's hearing impaired, say you have videos, you still have this county website, and they're offering some training. You have webinars for citizens to learn about some new things that are at that's going to become available at the recreational center. So you put out all of this information. Hey, come, we got free webinars. Well, someone that's hearing impaired, and it's pre-recorded, they go to the website and they hit play, but because they're hearing impaired, they can't gain access. They can't gain access to that information. So one of the things, an alternative that you should provide, is maybe a transcript. They should be able to turn on closed caption, or have like auto description, and I forgot the name of it, but you should, that webinar or any type of videos or audio, users that are hearing impaired, you have to think about some alternative methods for them to get that same information for those of us who can hear. Another example of why accessibility is important. Say you have someone that they have tremors and they can't hold a mouse. Your application, people that use the keyboard, they can't really use the mouse, or you might be temporarily impaired with your dominant hand, but for some reason you can't use the mouse. You still need to be able to navigate your software through the keyboard using the tab key, your enter button, And if you can't tab to major elements on the page, say like a link to go to another page, or you have a contact us page, and you should be able to tab to all of those text fields in order to enter your information. And then after you do that, there's a submit button. You should be able to hit the enter a key on your keyboard in order to select that button. So secondly, those are just a few examples, but you want to learn about why accessibility is important, again, before you start tackling and trying to fix something. The next thing, and I touched upon this with the first tip, but the third one is going to go a little bit further, and that is to learn what WCAG is. And you have WCAG 2.1 and 2.2, and there are different levels. So you have, say, 2.1, you have like a level 8, that is just a basic level. Then you have AA, and then you have AAA. Most organizations are looking for, say, WCAG 2.1 AA. So you want to understand what WCAG is, what these different guidelines, what these different standards are. And you can easily go again online, as I mentioned earlier in number one. You can go online and understand what these guidelines are, understand what WCAG is, what exactly it means, and these different guidelines and standards. It will guide the developers and the designers and people who are involved in building products and building software, any kind of digital products. It will guide them through on things that they can do in order to make their website, their product accessible. It's just a list of guidelines. Like the 3 examples that I gave you earlier for someone that's visually impaired, it explains to them, hey, in order for someone visually impaired, in order to gain access to this content, it needs to be coded in a way so if someone is using a screen reader, they can access that same information. And then it provides them with guidelines for that developer or for that designer. It provides them with more additional information and things that they can do in order to make it accessible. So the third thing is to make sure that you understand what it is, what those guidelines are. And then the fourth thing is you want to understand why your website or your software failed the audit. And you want to, now you have this basic understanding of what accessibility is, why it's important. Now you understand what the rules are, what the guidelines are. Now that will help you with understanding the report. So you want to request a copy, and probably in many cases your client has given you a copy of the report. If not, you want to request a copy of it to see exactly why your product failed. And then the final thing that you want to do, now that you've done all of those things, you have an understanding, you want to really start setting up a team. You want, and you have maybe like a person that's a champion, someone at your organization that's going to oversee accessibility, and that person is going to be responsible for setting up your accessibility team. They're going to be bringing in um, some key some key stakeholders. So it's not just the developer that's going to fix it. This person is going to build up a team. They're going to be the champion. You're going to once you start reading on these what we get WCAG standards are, you're going to set the team up, start building your implementing maybe some processes and some put some things in place before you start to tackle these issues that have been reported by your client. There are some other things that I recommend that you do, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to provide you guys with these basic tips, some things that you can do, or some things that you can think about in the event if you have been informed by your a client that you're at risk of losing your contract, or you want to prevent, um, you want to put in some preventative measures, and you're not really familiar on what accessibility is and why it's important, especially if you're producing any public facing products, software, you got a public facing website. One of your biggest clients is, say, the government, whether it's federal or local. You want to make sure that those products and things are accessible. And if you don't know what any of this is, you can get started with these few guidelines. And so I'm going to wrap this video up. However, if you are one of those organizations and you need some help, feel free to reach out to us here at Thornton's Consulting Firm. Our consultants here are waiting for you to assist you on your journey with learning more about what accessibility is, to be proactive instead of reactive, to get some things in place to help you along the way to implement some processes and procedures. We can come in right now before your client finds it. We can come in and can do a accessibility assessment. We can do an internal audit for you guys and provide you with an audit before your client does. So if you're in need of our services, feel free to, I'm going to include a link in the description section of this video that will take you directly to our website, where we are waiting and we're ready to help you with your accessibility needs. And finally, another thing before I leave, if this is your a problem, or again, we want to prevent these things from happening, and you're thinking like, okay, well, you're not just going to do anything, I would suggest that without taking action, these are some of the things, in addition to you losing money, you can lose trust. You can also increase your accessibility and compliance risk. You can miss other business opportunity, and you can spend a significant more time and money fixing issues later. And then finally, you can create barriers that prevent people from disabilities from using your digital products and services. Oh yes, and one other final thing. Again, if your product and your services is your clients or government, there's a possibility, or even if it's not, if it's a public facing product, you could stand a risk of being sued by someone with disabilities. So we want to prevent all of that from happening. So again, if you need any help or assistance with your accessibility, you have any accessibility needs, please give us a call here at Thornton's Consulting Firm. The link to our company website, you can find it here in the description section of this video, and I'll also include the company website in the bottom of this screen. So with that said, thank you so much for watching this video, and stay tuned for more tips and suggestions and things that you can do to make sure that your product is inclusive for all users. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.